School of Addiction. This is the online support group, which I'm doing every day at 10:10 because I love a good bit of numbers, which match each other. Me, a little autism and spiritual side coming out. This is Barbie, who is the co-host for Sunday Service School of Addiction podcast that we do every Sunday at 11:11. Again, love a number. Barbie's actually at work today, so she's just going to be chirping in if there's anything that she wants to say. So I'll be doing most of the talking. But just to let you know a little bit about who we are. So my name's Ashley and I'm an addiction therapist, but I've also overcame addiction myself. And I've also specialised in trauma. So one of the things that I do as an addiction therapist, which I think a lot of people don't do, is I look at the root cause of the addiction and also how to manage the addiction. And I think that's where my mantra, it's not addiction isn't the solution, it's the problem, comes from, because it's a symptom. Addiction is a symptom of whatever the trauma is. So that's the little difference that I've got, the little USP I have for you. And I've also overcame addiction, and I've also had loved ones who struggled with addiction. So I kind of know what it's like from all angles, and I've studied it. This is Barbie. And
I was just about to ask, when you say like it's the symptom, is it always the symptom of one thing? Is it you find that sometimes these symptoms are coming up from a long time ago?
pause for a little bit there. So it's with it being a symptom, it can be of many things. And what I've come to realise, the more that I've been further I've got into my recovery and the more healing I do, the more I realise it's a symptom of many things. And I think it's like kind of like, if you think of it as a symptom, and there's loads of other symptoms underneath. So it's not just one symptom, which is the addiction. There's loads of other things. But if maybe addiction's more of a self-medication, so it's a result of like trying to medicate, and it's a whole host of things. And if you think of it like kind of a funnel, so at the top we've got the addiction, that's the self-medication, and that might be medicating things like, underneath it, feeling lonely or not feeling good enough. One of my big things was having a lot of expectation to be a perfect person who never makes mistakes. So this is like kind of underneath. And then underneath that was the fact that I've had many traumas. So, and then traumas underneath that is a belief system that I am not good enough as I am. And we've also got in the mix, we've got mental health disorders, which again are symptoms of these original traumas. So there's a whole host of things going on. And addiction's just the one that we kind of shame ourselves for, is what I would say. And if you think of it like, for instance, if you've got something wrong with you, like a cold, you might have flu will go a little bit more severe than a common cold. But if we've got flu, we wouldn't just have one symptom, would we? We would have things like runny nose, sore throat. Hi, Brad Flowers. Well, do you know what it is? And this is one of the reasons why I feel like I need to advocate for people in recovery, is often people are like, you don't look like you've had an addiction. And I think this is a really like a misconception, that you need to look a certain way, or you need to look like you're not doing well to have struggled. But actually, I think there's a lot of people who are struggling with addiction who you maybe don't realise, or who look good on the surface, but really they're drowning, and then they're leaning into things to make themselves feel better. I know that's not what you meant, Brad, but it just made us think. But yeah, thank you. I'll take that.
When you're saying that mental health conditions, some of it can be through trauma, where are you leading with that?
So there is a lot of research out there which on every type of condition, bar autism. And the only reason why I don't want to talk about autism is I haven't actually researched that myself. So I haven't looked into that. So I don't want to speak on something I'm not 100% certain on. But there is so much research around the fact that ADHD, BPD, which is borderline personality disorder, narcissism, bipolar, all of these different mental health disorders, or even schizophrenia, although there is a genetic component to it, that actually, for them genes to be triggered, there's usually some childhood stressors going on. So it's usually that we're not quite got the right environment. So then these mental health disorders then develop, and it's actually a response. Now, what's interesting is sometimes you can have, say for instance, you might have ADHD and it might not look like on the surface that you had a childhood which is traumatic. But if we look at society as a whole, especially in the West, it's actually quite traumatizing for children, because the way we're raising children isn't what children need. They're not getting the basic emotional needs met, which isn't anyone's fault, but that is quite traumatic for a child. Like, for instance, let a child cry it out was a mantra. And that's so traumatizing for a child who's supposed to be attached to their moms, to be left in a room crying it out. And it's not ever the parents' fault for doing that. You know, I got told to do that, and I did do that with my son. And then, like, now I've realized actually that's really damaging. So a lot of these mental health disorders might not come from a trauma which has been really big, but it could be just a generational trauma. So yeah,
I think
I'm a
I've got to do
sociopath, and it's
with
hard to deal with that. I can really imagine that is hard to deal with. So that's one of the tetric triads? I feel like I might be saying that wrong. Yeah, so those kind of disorders are really difficult to deal with, but I think one of the biggest difficulties is actually being aware of it. So I think the fact that you've managed to realise that, I don't know what process you've been on, but yeah, I can imagine that's really difficult to deal with. I know a lot about narcissism, and I know of sociopaths, but I don't know too much into it. It's not something, again, that I've like really studied in depth.
really don't know anything actually.
England, the naughty kids will just get Haribo and sat in class playing on their phones. Don't get it. Yeah. I think it's the thing about that is, Brad, you're saying about naughty kids, and just to challenge that a little bit, I don't think children are necessarily naughty or not naughty. I think we all come out as these little innocent little lovely beings who have certain temperaments and will have certain genes, which then our environment molds. So like with naughty children, I would argue that actually the reason that naughtiness is almost like a symptom, it's a behaviour that's came from something else. So I used to work in a school, and there was a lot of kind of naughty children that I used to work with. And when I would spend that one-on-one with them, the behaviour was so different and really improved. And actually it was that they were really struggling at home and just needed to be seen. I don't know what your thoughts on that is. Brad, because I know you said you work in a school, so it's a very different understanding. I think I've got every one of them you've mentioned, Kevin. Yeah, I've got quite a few, I'm not going to lie. I've got ADHD, autism, bipolar, riddled, dyslexia. Way too, so kids get away with whatever they want, and it's disgusting the way they treat teachers, and then you see their parents and they are no better. Yeah, I do get that. I think it's like we just don't know as a society how to manage children. It's really hard because by the time the child's getting to the point where they are naughty, it's kind of like then we're having to punish their behaviour. And actually, I think they've not had the right environment in the first place, so that they're not displaying naughty behaviours, like naughty quote unquote. So it's really hard because it's like, well, how do we manage that? And then it's like, or do we punish them? But actually, or do we see them as a child who's struggling in the first place? And it's quite hard to manage because I think as a society, we're just getting it wrong. But these children are the ones who are more likely to grow up and develop addiction issues, because it's not a nice feeling being naughty. I was very naughty. I was always on report. And then I think that's where the perfectionism came from, because I was always getting in trouble for being
You were
naughty.
on report because you're being naughty. Why were your reasons being on report?
So I had ADHD, so I was a naughty child, and they didn't realise I had ADHD.
Oh,
So
so you were
then,
different on them.
yeah, so in my
Yeah.
head, I was just being me. Obviously, I didn't have any concept of being naughty and not naughty, but what I did have a concept of was I was constantly getting told off and being told I wasn't good enough. And then that then in later life escalated into being a perfectionist, a people pleaser, really bothered about being judged. So yeah. Hi. Shut up, you don't need to control our lives. I'm not trying to
But
control
you
your
haven't got
lives.
the ability really to control your life, and if you think that, then it's on you, isn't it? We don't want to
Yeah,
control
exactly. And you know, it's one of them where you can kind of like pick where you want to put your energy. Like you can always leave, can't you? You don't need to be a people pleaser and stay here.
Yeah, you can always jog on, isn't it? We're just trying to spend a little time touching on the base that I think everyone's struggling in a way that people don't see how each other struggle. They really
Yeah,
don't.
yeah, and I think one of the problems is I think like what I've learned is that actually I think there's a lot more the thing with like what I'm saying about the schools and like the naughty behavior and ADHD and addiction is when I've like obviously all these years I've spent learning about, you know, childhood development, trauma, addiction. There's so much evidence that says that actually there's a reason why we're all struggling with mental health disorders and addiction. So, and I think part of that, and that then goes down to naughty behavior at school and just struggles. It's just
Mm.
it's all because as a society we're kind of getting it a bit wrong. Myself included. That's one of the worst things about being a parent when you're learning about this stuff. And you're like, oh my god, I think I've probably screwed up my child a bit here. Oh, right,
So,
I've got ADHD. So this is actually helping. Oh, do you? Yeah, I've got ADHD as well. Who's pissed in Matt's cornflakes? I don't know if I've just misinterpreted Matt. I'm often misunderstood. I think that's an ADHD trait. I don't-
sorry, my phone's
I don't like the have. Yeah, I think ADHD is so it's I don't know, when did you get diagnosed, Matt? Because I didn't get diagnosed until I was older. We're only just realising that Barbie might have it. She
Well,
slipped under the radar.
there's a possibility I'm neurospicy somewhere, but I don't know. I think like Ashley says, I'm the best of a bad bunch.
She is. We were like,
Um,
we're neuro spicy, and then we're like, oh, actually, we think Barbie is.
yeah.
What is you don't really realise that that you're neuro spicy because again you're self-medicating. It's a symptom. And
Yeah.
I sort of realised first of all, I realised I had ADHD, and that was like just when I got sober. But then when I started medicating the ADHD, I was like, oh, hang on a minute, now I've got other things that like weren't as visible, autism and bipolar. And then I'm like, actually, the more I sort myself out, the more something else emerges. And I'm like, I think the addiction was like masking all of it. And then as soon as I took that away, I was like, oh, actually, I saw who was that person who used to do all the stunts and he was an addict and he's died? From Jackass, was it?
From where?
Jackass.
Oh my god, I don't know. The Welsh guys.
Was it Welsh guy? American? Is that
Oh,
Jackass? Or something like Jackass. There was a lad who was really famous and he overcame addiction. And he died not that long ago. Well, probably about 5, 10 years ago now. Anyways, I saw something with him about addiction, and he was saying the recovery starts well after you've decided to stop. And he's like, basically, when you get sober, you realize all the reasons why you were an addict in the first place. And then you've got to deal with all that. And he's like, all the traumas, all the mental health disorders, and you've got to deal with all that stuff that you've been pushing down in your addiction. I don't know if that's been people's experience.
yeah. Well, I suppose if you're covering the symptoms and then, yeah, I think. coming through any addiction, you have to face what you've been avoiding and hiding, isn't it?
Yeah. God, I was a bloody mess when
When
I
you're only
stopped.
11 years old. I mean, I suppose in these days, that's pretty early. 11 years old to find out that you're ADHD.
Yeah, 11 years old. I didn't even say that. Yeah, it is. I said, was it helpful knowing in school, Matt, that you were had ADHD? I think as well, I feel like boys, it's sometimes a bit more obvious, although there are a lot of lads who I know get diagnosed in later life, but I think it's more common for girls because we're mask. But what was that experience like? 'Cause I didn't get diagnosed and I always almost wish I had been. But then I'm thinking, if I had been, would it have been great? I don't know, you have been, so it'll be interesting to know. Do I suffer with the insecurity? It's because I've got autism. And what I've realised is that this is Betty Big Bun and she's like really soft, so it's a sensory thing. And I realised I had it on my on the live podcast I did yesterday, and it was really helpful to have something to fiddle with my ADHD and something sensory and soft. So yeah, it is. I suppose it is a comfort thing.
Oh, sorry, you got diagnosed 11 years ago.
Or 11 years ago. Oh no, it says 11 years old. You just read it wrong. I got
Sorry,
diagnosed at 11 years old. Yeah.
that's yeah.
Get your specs on. Yeah, so that's probably is a comfort thing, but it's more for me neurospiciness than insecurities because I am possibly the least insecure person there is.
Yeah.
Zero shame. I used to be very insecure, but it's more, yeah. I think it's just like I don't know if you get this, Matt, because like you've said you've got ADHD. I can't remember. Did you say you have ADHD as well, Kevin? Oh, you've said you've got all of them, yeah. So for me, with me ADHD, it almost feels like I've got a constant I'm in a constant state of anxiety. And obviously, like from what I know about ADHD, is because my brain's developed in a state of anxiety, so I'm in this constant like hypervigilant thing. So it's probably not insecurities, but there's like it's almost like my body's acting as if I'm insecure all the time. Just the wild brain of the ADHD person. And also, when I used to have my drug addiction, I noticed I didn't have as much ADHD symptoms. It used to switch it off. And I realised
Right.
that when I actually, so I got sober for a year and I was addicted to ketamine, just like horse tranquilizer. And I had a year later, I was in a position where I ended up taking it for one day. And I was like, oh my God, I can see why I used to do this all the time because I felt instantly relaxed. It was like it turned my ADHD off. Then they put us on ADHD meds and that did the same thing. But then I ended up getting sectioned because I didn't realise I had bipolar and sounded a bit crazy. Yeah,
Well,
so get diagnosed at 11 years old. That's quite a. We were talking about that yesterday, weren't we, Barbie? About that's quite a delicate time. Puberty
yeah,
hitting
it is. Uh-huh.
must have been quite
Born
difficult.
uh-huh. You know,
I was really bad on Valium, Xanax, and benzos.
so you
Yeah,
learn the
I think.
more the downer as opposed to like,
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, I said I've been sober for nearly 4 years, but I told you I had it that day, so it quietened my mind, but it turned us into a mom. And I was like realizing this isn't a very like appealing feeling. Well, that was a bit of nice, bit of a appealing feeling. A lot of a bit of alliteration. I'm not saying rhyming. But yeah, it's not a nice drug really. I don't think anything of it is. But one of the things that I always do with with clients, especially when you've got clients who don't want to admit that they've got a problem, is we'll start off asking what's good about it. And I think that's a really important question to ask yourself when you're in recovery. What's good about it? What's it doing? And I think it was the fact it was sedating my mind, which is so overactive. But yeah, I imagine that Xanax and Valiums do that. I've had Xanax quite a lot because I used to have that because I couldn't sleep off the ketamine. And it's quite nice. It was quite a nice feeling, but it was really like it was making us because you ask yourself what's good about it in the first place, and then you'd ask what's bad about it, and it used to make us really weird the next day. I think that's the problem with addiction, is it serves a purpose, but then so it solves one problem. In my case, ADHD, like kind of numbed my trauma, numbed the fact that I hated myself. But then it creates a whole new host of other problems, and like realistically, you've got to deal with the issues. It's not really a practical solution, is it? Being knee deep in an addiction. It took loads. Never had a Chloe experience, just a chill vibe. What's a Chloe experience?
K-hole,
You up?
I think K-hole.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't recommend it. Yeah, it was. It was really horrible, to be honest. I had a horrible time on it. You couldn't pay us to go back. Where did I get help for quitting? So I actually already was my addiction. So I knew everything that I had to do. And actually, I was trying all of this stuff and it was not working. And then what I realized was I actually just needed a few things which I wasn't doing, which one was the environment I was in was really triggering. So I was around people who, were the best people for us. So that was really triggering. I had like really quite unhealthy relationships, and sick attracts sick. So I wasn't exactly being the most healthy in the relationships. I can't say these were bad people, but it was like a toxic back and forth. So I had to get rid of the toxic people, or the toxic relationships, I should say, because they weren't toxic people. Like it takes two to tango. I had to get rid of the toxic relationships. I had to tell everybody what was going on, so I needed support. I needed to like people to say, one, holds us accountable, and two, support us to get through it. And I also needed to go into like support type groups and environments, which was like people who've been through it, which actually was Barbie. She helped us. So I remember when there was a time where I basically had found some ketamine and I was pranging out, and I was like, oh my God. Like, it was like I'd been sober about a month, 6 weeks. And I was like, what do I do? And I was like, I need to ring Barbie. And she was acting like a sponsor, weren't you? But then I messaged her and I said, I found this and I'm telling you because I want you to ask us tomorrow, because she was asleep. And I said, I want you to ask us tomorrow so that I can say that I got rid of it. Yeah, so I needed accountable people. So for me, it was telling people who'd already been through it. If you haven't got that, a support group, there's lots of AA meetings, SMART meetings. So if you want some practical places, the I Am Sober app really helped, because I could rack up the wins instead of feeling like a failure. Each day felt like, wow, I've done another day, and it tells you all the different milestones you're hitting. So I'd definitely recommend that. Just speaking to like-minded people. Getting my mental health disorders diagnosed and sorted out was helpful. So it wasn't just one thing that helped us, it was multiple things. You have to attack addiction at all angles. And the final thing was I was getting my trauma sorted out. So Barbie's trauma, and I don't want to talk about it, was about her speaking to her friends about it. Now, luckily, she has a counsellor who's a best friend. I had to go to physical counselling, but just dealing with the trauma in a safe environment, whether that's with friends, family, support groups, counselling. I had to go to quite a few different counselling modalities and different counsellors. So you just have to attack it from all angles. SC Guy, that is what I was trying to say, a very long-winded way. What about you, Barbie? Where did you get your help? Because yours was a bit more conventional, wasn't it?
Yeah, mine was definitely a bit more conventional, but even though it was more actively seeking services, I wasn't in the right place to use them. So whether they like offer counselling and stuff like that. So my had a bit of a trauma-based childhood, which was actually, when we think about it, was quite brutal. And in this, moved a lot of different places in a lot of different schools and stuff like that. So I never had that constant friend where I felt safe enough to go like, I've been hit off my dad. My mum's left my dad in a refuge. I didn't have that. So,
Mm.
I mean, I've known you for years, but you notice I have a very small circle. And even though they were, do you want to talk about this? My journey was probably longer because I couldn't open up about my childhood. I didn't have that. Yeah, so it took like 20 years now to actually be able to seek that help where I
Yeah.
can discuss my childhood and the things like I would just go, oh, we had it bad, but others had it worse. But actually, we had it, we did have it bad, and like that was my symptom. I think that I was trying to work through and not being understanding of how like our child like kids could be in such carnage. Um, and I think it's took for us to start working on that to start understanding um why my addiction came to pass. It's still it's still difficult and raw. I feel like sometimes to talk about. Like obviously, Ashley knows the ins and outs because she's like one of my best friends, but it's still hard to open up because and understand why we were kept in that position for so long, to understand why there was no help, to understand why like none of the teachers, why did nobody like click on no hospital visits, like all of that.
It's been a lot, hasn't it? I think one of the things, and I think that goes back to what I said for me, the what do you call it? I knew all the tools. I knew in addiction counselling inside out, and they weren't working without dealing with the trauma. And I suppose it did work for you because you were going through services, but I guess it's that going back to that support. So that might be support groups where you can lean on other people, or it might be support
So
from friends, but you didn't have that. Like you needed
you
use the
have
root
to you
cause.
have to find that when in spots sitting in a support group wasn't for me because I struggled
Yeah.
to open up and still struggle to open up with people. Um, but where I kind of lent into more my spirituality and try to get in touch with like earth and nature, and that's where I felt like I was winning more. I used to have it wasn't my field, but I called it my field, that I would just take my dog up and just sit there and just sit in nature. I mean, even now I sit on my roof, and if the wind's going through my hair, just you've got to find that place where you feel safe enough to heal. I think
Yeah.
and for me, part of it was by myself, by myself, not telling anybody or talking about it.
No, I do. I did a lot of healing by myself. I think for you, support services kind of did help you get to the point where you could heal. If I think that's what
Yeah.
you're saying. Whereas for
Mhm.
me, support services, I didn't really need that. I think it's everyone's journey is different, but what I think we do need to do is at some point we need to look at why did we have the addiction, but we need to find the right time and the right space and the right people to feel like we can open up about that. And I've noticed, Barbie, you said that it's still a bit raw. I've noticed in the last year you started like sharing little snippets and you're getting a little bit more comfortable with opening up, and that's even with like your best friend and sister. You can tell it's quite a struggle to talk about these things, but you are slowly but surely getting more comfortable
Yeah,
in that
yeah.
uncomfortable. It's nice to watch, actually. It's really endearing to see, like, and it's nice to be able to like be that safe space for you. But I think it's really important to have a safe space with
That's
yourself.
that's it. I mean, like when I first said to you, like, oh, struggle with addiction, even though you had seen it in your family line, like you didn't judge me at all. You were so helpful and like, what can I do? What do you need?
Yeah.
So, you know, not that I wanted to repay the favor, but it was nice to be able to do that. Yeah.
Okay. It is, and I
Uh-huh.
think the thing is as well, like, but I've got to admit, so I've dealt with addiction with people who I'm close with, and I haven't been able to extend that empathy as much. Which is something that I wish I could go back and change. But I do think it's quite hard when you're very close to somebody and you're watching them struggle with addiction to be able to hold that empathy, because you're riddled with fear and desperation that you're like, I just want you to stop. And that can present as not being able to be as empathetic. And I think that's one of the things that I've had to heal, is like how I felt like people were treating me when I said I had an addiction. It was so painful because I felt so judged and shamed, and that tough love, and it was horrible. I didn't need tough love, I just needed love. Like at this point, really needed love and appreciation,
A
acceptance.
little bit of niceness, isn't it?
Like the addiction is tough enough, let's not go for tough love approach, please. But
Yeah.
I was like, even though I was able to hold space and empathy for you, I wasn't able to extend that for the people who I loved. And I think that's because it's really hard when someone's close to you. So I think it's important when we're getting support to make sure we're going to the right people who can support us, who have the capacity, because sometimes people who are too close to us can actually exacerbate the situation and make it worse.
Yeah.
I'm gonna take a second to just read through these, because I know that I don't want to say that name, RS93. And you shouldn't be reading. Coke was my antidepressant for me. That's why I was doing it in morning time. I've got BPD, so anything that would stop anxiety I loved. Didn't like crack either. Kettle, I meant. All right, yeah, a Chloe experience. Yeah. So before I had an addiction to Ket, I actually had an addiction to Coke. But it was actually an addiction to cocaine. So I didn't realize this, but it was like if you have cocaine and alcohol together, it forms a compound which is physically addictive. And that's why often people who are recreational cocaine users will have a drink, and then they're like, as soon as they have a drink, they're like, oh, I need a line. And that's because you're addicted to that. So and then obviously you associate addictions with certain times and rituals, don't you, and people. So yeah, I did have a kind of an affiliation with Coke, but obviously I haven't had it where I'm waking up every day, and I've got quite a lot of my friends did, though, I've got to admit. But yeah, I can understand though how it was an antidepressant, especially with BPD, and I actually have a lot of empathy because BPD is one of the hardest ones to deal with. I would say it is really difficult. How are you managing it now? I'm wondering. And no problem, SC guy. Yeah, anytime. What were you going to say there, Barbie?
Just when like when SC guy said I was using it as an antidepressant, was it feeling like it was making you feel better, or was it just giving you the energy and get up and go?
Yeah. That it felt like I had the energy. It gave us so much energy, and I feel like I'm drained of energy now. I don't do that drugs anymore. But I don't know if it was more energy versus the amount of energy I'm using when I'm not, like, like when you're saying like you're depressed, like how much energy it takes to be depressed or anxious or stressed.
Yeah.
It zaps you of energy, doesn't it? Because like we talk about this all the time. When we're stressed, we're just like riddled with like illnesses, cold sores. I get allergies. So I wonder, like, when you're saying like, does it give you that get up and go? Is it because you're not stressed? Not depressed? Depressed. I've got bipolar, so I understand depression. It's not nice. I really feel for your RS93. Is there any points, Bobby, where you have a feeling where you're like, I like have a craving or anything now, or do you not get any?
The fact that anything that reminds us of my drug of choice makes us feel physically sick. At that time, I mean, even though the drug that I was addicted to wasn't my drug of choice, or what I was now, anything that reminds us of the scent makes us feel physically sick. And I don't know if that was a bit of the brain training of when I was avoiding it, of thinking of all the badness in it, and but that's a good thing. So I don't have that pegging at my head now, even though I think everybody has a little vice, a little drink now, or a little smoke here and there. But I don't have that, which is like the worst of it.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I'd say I still sometimes, if I'm having a bad time, I'll notice that little voice creeps in my head and like, oh, I could just get some. This is the way it goes. I'll just get some this weekend because Tommy, my son's not be here and nobody will know and I can just do it. And then I catch myself like thinking, I'm like, whoa, no, we're not doing that. Ashley blocks it. Why are you thinking like that? And then it gives us an opportunity to think about why am I craving my drug of choice? Why am I doing that? But I don't think I've ever got to a place where it disgusses the thought of it like it has for you. I think it's just something. It's like kind of a bit like as being a vegetarian. Like I don't eat meat, but I love meat. The only difference is I do sneak meat when I get a chance. I'm a meat sneaker.
Yeah.
Like Barbie's got a chicken sandwich. She's like, "Do you want some?" Because I know how much she like to sneak a bit of meat. So I'm kind of like that with mine. I've never really got to a place where I don't like it. But I don't think I didn't want to stop because I didn't like the feeling of it. The problem was it was screwing up my life.
Yeah. And I think sometimes, but a family member and addiction, sometimes it takes to your lowest point for you to realize that actually this is not good. It might temporarily make us feel good, but the bite that I want to get off it, whether it's even when I find out tomorrow when I'm absolutely kicking myself, thinking, why did you do that?
Mm-hmm.
So it's pros and cons.
Yeah, you do need to. This is one of the things as well, talking about like supporting supporting loved ones with addiction. Sometimes you've got to let the shit hit the fan, don't you?
Yeah.
Because I think sometimes we can try and we can end up instead of supporting and enabling, and that's not helpful. It's trying to toe the line between having empathy and not judging or shame and not giving that tough love, but also not enabling and having those boundaries, because it is really painful to see someone you care about going through that. And sometimes that can present as like anger and disappointment. But yeah, it's trying to toe that line of how do I be there for someone and not get resentful of them having an addiction. Because I think part of it is just letting the shit hit the fan and knowing they're on their journey, and it will get hopefully to a point where they don't want to do it anymore because it's that the effects are that bad.
That's it. And I think as well as like trying to not do
It's you
still have to
need
try
it to
and be there. It's a difficult line to walk, especially I think like from all sides. I've been in a relationship, my family. So like you say, you have to just be kind and be boundaried.
Yeah, fair but fair. I think as well, because what the person who's going through the addiction is doing, and I used to do addiction support groups for BetterHelp. And I remember there was this one person, it's completely confidential, I'm not going to discuss anything about them, but they came on and they said I wasn't going to come to this group because I've used today, but I'd already signed up for it. So I came along and I said, actually, we're just not going to talk about like what you need to do, but more focus on about like not shaming yourself for that, because they were really ashamed, but they were really brave and turned up to the group anyway. And we spoke about that. And I think what we're doing when we're trying to get out of addiction is we need this simultaneous thing of life going downhill. So like the shit's hitting the fan, we're really struggling. So life's getting worse. The impacts and the effects of the addiction is getting worse. But on the same side, we need to be getting our self-worth and our self-love to go up. So we're getting this kind of like life's getting worse, but we love ourselves more. And that's really hard to do. And I think that's where that firm but fair comes in. Like, we're going to still love you, but also like you need to like know that this isn't good for you.
Yeah, that's it to her.
But like actually tough love can make that self-love that needs to go up go down, and that's detrimental. What were you going to say there, Barbie?
It is so important that you have self-love and you're kind to yourself. So I also think that if you are in recovery and you have toxic people that aren't understanding or are still shaming you or still bringing you down, you have to be in that right frame of mind to think, actually, I'd rather just do it by myself and distance myself from you, so I can do it my way and recover in a healthy space.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I remember there was this thing, this person who I'm friends with who was spoke about addiction recovery when they were going through it, and we were having a laugh because we were saying don't go to people for support who are the reason why you're using why
Yeah,
you're addicted to something in the first place. So I think, like, if we've got people around us who aren't really that supportive, they're probably contributing to the addiction.
yeah,
So don't go to them for support because they're probably half the reason why you're knee deep in the addiction in the first place. Get rid of those people, find new people, find your new tribe,
yeah.
and distance yourself from those people. It is hard, but then it's like you've got to get to a place of loving yourself enough to say that these people aren't helpful to
On
distance myself.
helping.
I deserve better, more boundaried, healthier relationships. Or that I
That's
deserve to be
true.
around people who accept us at my worst.
Yeah, that's it. And I think if people will accept you at your worst, then they deserve to have you at your best. You
Yeah,
know.
yeah. It's like a filtering process, isn't it?
Yeah, it
Uh,
is. And you have to yeah, you have to be so kind to yourself and filter wisely.
yeah, I think addiction recovery, I really was forced to develop a brilliant relationship with myself, and it was so painful because, like, I would say the majority of people who I spoke to on a day-to-day basis, it became that I never spoke to them at all. And I don't think any of them are bad people, like, but I'm not. The problem was, I think society has got such a stigma attached to addiction that stigma was getting, like, kind of filtered through them.
Yeah,
And you know people hurt. There's been a lot of people are affected by addiction, so there was a lot of contributing factors, but the people who were in my life all of a sudden weren't in my life. Either they didn't want to be around me because of my addiction, or I couldn't be around them because of how they were treating us because of my addiction. I needed that love and support, that unconditional love, and I needed healthy people. Or a lot of my friends were actively using still. So I ended up going through this filtering process where all of a sudden I lost the majority of the people in my life. My whole life got flipped upside down. I lost job, all these different things, because I started to love myself. And unfortunately, you start to have to look at your environment and think, and does that align with this newer version of myself? So it was a really painful process, but it was it was a process I'm very glad I went through.
yeah, because then you're just leaving yourself with people that are trusting in people that you've got trust in. As
Yeah.
good as it seems at the time, or you're breaking off all of these connections, or whether it's family or friends or colleagues, sometimes you have to recovery come first, isn't it?
Recovery always comes first, has to. Yeah, you just got to be around the right people, and it doesn't mean that these people are wrong. It just means they don't understand, and that you need people who understand your addiction, whether that's they've been through it or they just are somebody who's naturally inclined to not be judgmental, or somebody who could just love you unconditionally and say, it doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter what you've done
Yeah,
in your past. I love you for who you are now.
that's it.
Yeah.
People can and do change.
Mhm. And it's just having people around you who don't see you as an addict, who see you as a person who's struggled, and, like, they're not seeing you as, like, I think there's this, like, stereotype of an addict as a bad, self-centered person who's doing these horrible things or whatever it is. There's so many different things that are attached, like, to that label addict, where I would say very few things are nice. So somebody who
Yeah,
sees past the addiction and sees you for a person.
that's it. It makes a huge difference, isn't it? And also, with that, I think if you haven't got someone that can see past it and is just seen addict and therefore just treat you like an addict, you have to have
Yeah.
compassion around you.
And something I know that you experience and I imagine there's quite a lot of people there, is one of the things that happened with me is everybody still assumed and treated us as if I was an addict after I was. And it
Yeah,
was this because obviously I understand this, because obviously it's you get, I don't know about everyone, but it's quite common to try and have it in secrecy, and you don't tell people about the addiction. So then people kind of probably don't trust you that much that you haven't slipped up. But it actually took me being sectioned, where they did a drugs test because I was acting as if I was under the influence. And after I got sectioned and I did this drugs test, all of a sudden people were like, oh no, wait, actually she isn't an addict anymore, because it didn't flag up if I was an addict, they would have failed the drugs test at the hospital. And that was about 3 years later. Sorry, 2 years of being sober. So for 2 years, people thought and treated us as if I was still an addict, and I wasn't, which is really painful. So you really need people who've got your back, because you can't be treated like an addict when you're not.
yeah, really painful.
It is, especially when you're doing so well and you just want someone to say, I'm proud of you. And instead, they're just still treating you like you've not done it. It's like, actually, I'm doing really well over here.
I know, and then in that respect, you have to give yourself, like, you have to give yourself, you have to be a bit tough and think, I don't need your opinion. And I
Yeah,
think probably a bit more hard faced and think, well, if you're thinking like that, think like that. I
yeah.
know you can't really change what people
Can't.
think.
I think
Unfortunately.
part of that as well for me was learning the need to be validated, because I think I had such low self-esteem, which is only exacerbated by the addiction. And then I had to learn, like, okay, some people are just going to always assume I'm an addict and I'm a
Yeah.
bad mom and I'm this and I'm that, and that's fine. Let them let them
Yeah.
think that, like, clearly they don't
Some
know
people
it.
are always do they? Yeah, exactly. Uh-huh. I
Yeah,
know. And it's then people that you really have to give no credence to the thought, I just think.
yeah. No
This is looking
credence.
yes. Look at this is looking fantastic, by the way, isn't it?
Oh, love it. So they've got a dog. But please tell them a bit about Poopy's Boutique. So this
Okay.
is like this is like the best business I've ever shown in my life. It's brilliant.
It's just so much fun to start with. We make clothes for little chihuahuas, etc. So these are some of the patchworks that we do, little handbag. We've got a
Just
fufu boo thing, and I come to work with my sister. Like I've got my little dog. You can see him down there. He's the model. and
so
then
Barbie's making out like so part of what they do is make very lovely dog, like chihuahua clothes, but I find it hilarious because some of the things they make is like these huge crazy dresses for little chihuahuas. So like but there if you are a crazy chihuahua person, which I've learned, yeah, look at this dress for a chihuahua. So if you're a crazy dog person, that is amazing. However, it's also really funny, I find. But they make really good ones as well. You make little tiny so I don't like putting my chihuahuas in big dresses, but I
no,
do like put them in cute little coats. Oh my god, they're amazing.
yeah,
Keep them warm.
little stuff
Yeah.
like this.
I
Not
see I
silly.
don't like any bows too. I'm like, I want a no fuss harness where it's like keeps them warm. But you do so many different things. This is a crazy thing.
Little frivolous hat for a
If
dog.
you want to turn your dog into a labubu, which a lot of people do if you're a crazy dog. Do you know what? I think that speaks to something with addiction is one of the things I struggled with was identity. And I think when you overcome an addiction, it can be really good to find out what is it that you identify with in your love and what's your passion, and start pouring into that. So mine's doing things like this. So I love the sound of my own voice. So doing little content creation's good for that. But you and your sister do dog clothes, and like that's their
Yeah.
crazy little
Oh,
passion, which is amazing.
so I've always had I don't know, like not that I've been academic, though I do have the most common sense out of the group, don't I, Ash? But I've always had like
It's
a
mad
flair for
bunch.
art. Yeah, like art or like anything working with my hands, I'm good at. So
You You are, I think, very, very intelligent, very
That,
smart.
but the thing is, though, I'll say to Ashley, you are the most intelligent, thickest person I know. I don't even know all the letters that you've got to hang around your name with all that education. They go, what's Ashley? I'm like, I don't know. There's definitely letters around her name. What are your letters, Ash?
I've got 2 counselling degrees. There's a funny story about that. I've got 2 counselling degrees, and I've got a master's, and I was doing my PhD, and then I just got to the point where I was like, I'm a single mom, trying to have like a counselling business. I was working for BetterHelp at the same time, doing addiction groups, starting up content creation. I was like, why the hell am I doing a PhD here? Like, what am I trying to prove this to? So I didn't get the doctor letters, but it's on the list of things to do.
On
But
the list.
when I got sectioned, so with my bipolar, I've got 2 counselling degrees because, okay, there's 2 stories around this. First of all, I clicked on the wrong degree because I've got ADHD. I clicked on the wrong university. I was meant to go to London, and I ended up going to the University in Newcastle, which I didn't want to do because I really wanted to move away, and I had only put it in to fill up my 5 universities. So it was my last choice, and I didn't realise I clicked on Newcastle instead of London, which was underneath it. So I was devastated when I got an email saying thank you for choosing Northumbria University, and I was like, what? I didn't choose Northumbria. But then it was too late. So I ended up going and doing this counselling degree, which I wasn't even wanting to do counselling. It was just I just threw something in because I've got retardation. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that. I brief myself saying that all the time. That's probably not the best thing to say online, but I legit am. So, anyways, I clicked on the wrong degree because of my ADHD. So I did this counselling degree, but it wasn't really a full counselling degree. It was it's called a joint honours. It was counselling degree in sociology. So then I went to be a counsellor, and I was doing my master's in addiction. And basically, I got told I can't be a counsellor once I'd already got the degree for counselling. So then I went to do another counselling degree, which was quite annoying because I had to go back to college and go right the way through the process whilst doing a master's. So, anyways, I'm probably one of the few people in the world who can say I've got 2 counselling degrees, and it was by accident. It was like literally by a mess up. So I'd fucked up, got 2 counselling degrees, as you do.
It was
Then
legit actually on brand.
as you So then, anyways,
Doubling down.
I got sectioned, and I was absolutely fine. I should have been. So when you get sectioned, for those who don't know, you're detained by law, but you can't. You have these meetings with psychiatrists, and they can say, okay, we don't think this person needs to be sectioned anymore, and they can write it off and get you out. Now I was totally fine. I was ready to go. Is my sound still working, Barbie?
It is.
I
It's
was
very
ready to go home. And then basically, they pulled us into this meeting with psychiatrists and asked, what do I do for a job? And I said, I'm a counsellor. They said, all right. And they said, where did you get your degree? And I said, which one? And what do you mean? I said, well, which degree? Like your counselling degree. I said, which counselling degree? And they're like, what do you mean? I said, I've got 2 counselling degrees. And they said, oh, you've got 2 counselling degrees, have you? And they basically shut the conversation down and thought that I was mental, grandiose, psychotic, thinking I've got 2 counselling degrees. And they were like, she's just nuts. She's clearly not a counsellor. She's clearly still needs to be sectioned. And I was just sent on my way. And I was like locked up for another 2 months. I was like, no, I do have 2 counselling degrees. I didn't click on until after. They probably just thought I was being mental.
Oh.
I know. Anyways, I am very tired, so I think I'm gonna end it there. But it's been nice, and yeah. And we're going live at 10:10, everybody. Sometimes it's just me, sometimes Barbie pops on. But yeah, thanks for joining. And if you're watching this on catch up, if you want to pop along for the live one, that's at 10:10 every day, weekday. And we also have a live podcast, me and Barbie, which is called Sunday Service of Addiction. And we'll have a live Q&A at the end of that, so come join. But yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you for joining us. Bye.